Hi everybody, Jim Egan, head of school, Synapse School, with a Friday update. The weather is finally getting a little cooler. I spent a lot of time today and this week outside with kids, with staff, getting a sense of what is happening. As you remember from last week, if you watched my video, an L tour told me or asked me, why did it seem I had a suspicious amount of free time? It's really not free time. What I'm doing is checking in on kids, checking in on staff, building relationships, getting a sense of morale. How are people feeling? Because there's a sense out there, if you're reading in the media, any media, that there's a crisis in schools and teachers are burnt out and education's in a state of disrepair. And I certainly talked to other heads of school, and some of these sentiments are echoed and are real, but I can tell you from my experience and my empirical data gathering that Synapse is firing on all cylinders, has never had a better start. Kids are excited to be here, teachers are thankful to be here, and I'm grateful for the start, because starts and finishes matter. Teachers know this. The start to a school day, the start to a project, the start to a school year, they really do matter. And often when you have a great start, this can really carry through the school year. That's been my experience over 30 years. So things are looking really great. Okay, a couple things right away. Annual fund, it's that time of year. We will launch that shortly to the new parents. The annual fund is the second largest source of revenue that our school receives each year. It'll be in the newsletter. I'll talk about it coming up at Back to School Night, which I'll mention in a minute. And we really need 100% participation. Every year I've been here, which is now my 10th year, we have had 100% participation by our community. That means parents, teachers, staff, guardians, all involved. There'll be more details to come. Sarah Hill, Director of Community Programs, helps me with this endeavor, as well as a handful of parents that act as volunteers in this to help the annual fund go. So pay attention to the newsletter. I will be talking about it at Back to School Night, which is next Wednesday. That's a big event for our community. This is an opportunity for parents and guardians to come in and to see our space, get to know our staff, meet other parents, hear about the program. What are we doing around academics leading edge? What are we doing in terms of our robust SEL curriculum and integration? How do we really bring the engineering and design program into projects throughout our TK8 school? So that is on Wednesday. I asked the teachers 2 questions at a staff meeting earlier this week. How do you want parents and guardians to feel at the event? And 2, how do you want parents and guardians to feel after the event? So I'm asking parents and guardians right here now as well. I want you to think about those 2 questions. How do you want to feel at the event? And how do you feel? And how do you feel after as well? And then give us some feedback. We want to hear how you think things went. We're changing up our format this year to move away from a harried, rushed pace to a more open house sort of experience. So it's going to give you time to mingle, get to know people, and to think big thoughts. Now, thinking big thoughts, another thing that we are working on, something that I'm working on here at Synapse, is a bold idea speaker series. One of the greatest aspects to living in this area, I feel, is the embracing of big ideas that really embodies the spirit of Silicon Valley. I think that past couple of years, the area, probably the world, has moved away from thinking big thoughts, because many of us, most people, were just trying to get through the day and just trying to figure out what was going on during the pandemic. I believe this school was a big idea that became something big, and now we're going to talk about these sort of big ideas around education. So I've lined up a couple of speakers. I'm going to tease it here because we're going to roll it out pretty soon, but we'll have 3 speakers this year. 2 are lined up. They're parents in our community. And when I talk about big ideas, I'm thinking of them in the context of our pillars: SEL, innovation, leading edge academics. How do these big ideas and innovation impact teaching and learning? What are the big, bold ideas around emotional health, social well-being in schools, in education? I really feel there's no better place and no stronger community to bring these ideas to the forefront and then have a dialogue about them with an audience of parents and guardians and potentially even beyond the Synapse community. So that's something that's going on here as well. Back to more local events that are happening right away. Family Day Camp is happening Saturday. If you haven't been to the Family Day Camp or Family Camp, if you're new, this is an opportunity to come out, meet other families. Kids have just the best time in a safe environment that is also beautiful. Huddard Park nearby, if you haven't been, is a real sanctuary and oasis that our returning families and staff know very well. So please come out on Saturday, which is tomorrow. Apparently the donuts go fast and they may be the best part of the event from what I hear. I missed the donuts last year, so that's important. And I'm looking at my notes. The last thing I really wanted to touch upon is something that I read earlier this week that I wanted to share. It's from Haruki Murakami. He's an author. I have one of his books, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. And he wrote an essay in the New Yorker called Abandoning a Cat. It's a memoir about his dad. And when I read it again, I was thinking about thinking about my dad and thinking about being the father to my son, who's 21, and my daughter, who's almost 17. And some of the expectations that are put upon kids. He is writing about his father and his father's love of academics and those expectations of him in school that he didn't meet. And I'll read a little bit about it. So he writes here, I couldn't live up to my father's expectation. I never could will myself to study the way he wanted me to. I found most classes at school mind-numbing, the school system overly uniform and repressive. This led my father to feel a chronic dismay and me to feel a chronic distress. When I debuted as a novelist at 30, my father was really pleased, but by that time our relationship had grown distant and even cool. Even now, I carry around with me the feeling, or perhaps the dregs of the feeling, that I disappointed my father, let him down. Back in my teens, this made things uncomfortable at home with a constant undercurrent of guilt on my part. I still have nightmares in which I have to take a test at school and can't answer a single question. Time ticks away as I do nothing, though I'm well aware that failing the test will have major consequences. That sort of dream. I usually wake up in a cold sweat. But back then, being glued to my desk, finishing homework, and getting better grades on tests held far less appeal than reading books I enjoyed, listening to music I liked, playing sports or games with friends, and going out on dates. All we can do is breathe the air of the period we live in, carry with us the special burdens of the time, and grow up within these confines. That's just how things are. I found that a beautiful statement, that last bit, about all we can do is breathe the air of the period we live in and carry with us the special burdens of the time. But I think about this, and I wonder if you as parents think about it too. There's some wise words here along the way. What are those expectations that we're placing on our kids, and how may they be affecting over time the relationships we have with our children? It's something to think about. It's a personal journey that we're all on, just like this author is on. Murakami is a wonderful thinker, and some of you probably know who he is and have read his works. But I'll leave that with you. Okay, that's it for this Friday. Thanks again for a terrific start, and I'll see many of you at Family Day Camp. Okay, take care.